Welcome everyone. I am so excited to see all these smiling faces. I hope all of you are having a wonderful Friday. And at AACUC, we start on time and we end on time. So let's go ahead and get started. So greetings and thank you so much for joining us for the AACUC Commitment to Change Credit Unions Unite Against Racism Friday Conversation, Extraordinary Women in Leadership. We're so glad you're here. Now, there's a couple of housekeeping rules that we're going to go over before we get started. We know that life happens and you may need to step away, take a call, or even have a conversation. So we ask that you immediately please mute the volume on your microphone and or devices, as well as stop your video. These functions can be found at the bottom of your screen on your device. You're also so very important to us. So upon return, please make sure that you start your video again so that we can stay truly connected. And remember, unless you are called upon as a program participant, please keep your volume muted on your microphone or device. We encourage you to engage with us throughout this amazing session with the virtual clap and chat. In addition, if you have any questions, send them in chat. We're going to be collecting them and hopefully we can get to all of them. Or towards the end, make sure you raise your virtual hand so we can call upon you. Now, without further ado, please help me welcome Kauai Federal Credit Union President and CEO, Monica Belz.
Aloha, everybody, and good morning from the island of Kauai. It is 7 a.m. and the sun is rising, so I'm pounding the coffee. I hope you guys have your coffee and water too today. You're going to need it. We have an incredible panelist, and I am honored to be the moderator. But there are no rules here, so even as moderator, I might be asked questions, and I might be asking SB questions along with all of our amazing panelists here. I would love to let our panelists introduce themselves, but first I want to go through their names and titles. If you don't know them, please find them on LinkedIn and go stalk them. They are sheroes of our movement, and you definitely want to get to know them. We have Priscilla Awkard, Vice President Teller Center of Coastal Credit Union. If you can wave when I announce your name, that will help some of the people see you. We have Erin Coleman, Senior Director, Advisory Services of Filene Research Institute. We have Deatra Matthews, Chief Legal Officer and General Counsel of Local Government Federal Credit Union. And we have Whitney Anderson Harrell, President and CEO of Elements Financial Credit Union. So once again, go stalk them on LinkedIn and be ready to be blown away by an incredible group today. In that same order, I'd love you ladies to just introduce yourselves, just give a little brief introduction. Tell us something interesting about you and why you think we should celebrate International Women's Day.
I think that's me, Monica. You called on me first. So good afternoon, everyone. I am so honored to be here on this panel with these amazing women to speak with you all today about International Women's Day. It's bittersweet because it's a movement that started so long ago that we're still in the midst of, and that we are still working so hard to gain that equality. So, you know, International Women's Day is everything to all of us women that thrive and work so hard to make the world a better place for the women that's coming after us. So that's my little spiel about that. I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm at Coastal Credit Union, and I am so happy to be here with you all today.
Thank you, Priscilla. Erin.
Hello, everyone, and what a thrill to see so many of my friends on the line today. It's awesome, almost as good as GAC. So I'm Erin Coleman, and I'm a dinosaur. I've been around a long time, so I know many of you. I live in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I work for Filene Research Institute, as Monica said. And yeah, like Priscilla, very honored to be here with my friends and fellow queens, and excited about our conversation today. And the reason I think we should celebrate International Women's Day and International Women's History Month is because the cultural construct and societal construct is still about a male-dominated, well, white, male-dominated and male-led society. And until we earn that gender parity everywhere in the boardroom, the office, our communities, and at home, then that's why we're doing this.
Beautiful, Erin. Thank you. Day?
Thank you, Monica, and good afternoon, everyone. I too am excited to be a part of this illustrious panel of extraordinary women. So I'm going to pick up where Erin left off and talking about why International Women's Day. I think it's both a celebratory time, right, where we acknowledge where we have come, what we have done, because there are things that have been done in the way of gender parity and equity throughout the world. But it's also a time for us to reflect aspirationally, right, on where we need to go. There's so much more work to be done. Just for an example, and you guys have probably heard these numbers, I love statistics, but women continue to make 82 to 83% on every dollar that a man makes. That's a huge income gap. And it's across the world, across industries. We need parity when it comes to income, positional authority, and other things. And so that's why the need for International Women's Day. We've done great work, let's celebrate it, but let's keep our eye on the ball. We have more work to do. I'm General Counsel for the Local Government Federal Credit Union and Civic Federal Credit Union. I handle legal, compliance, risk, all those particular matters. And I'm just excited again to be a part of this panel.
Awesome. Thank you, Day. Whitney.
Hello, everyone. So great to be here today. Very excited to see all of these amazing individuals that have joined us today, as well as this absolutely extraordinary group of women. I am President CEO of Elements Financial, and this is day 20 in my new position. So I'm really excited about that. And so this particular month, to just barely start the job during Women's Month and Women's History Month and have International Women's Day be important, is very poignant to me personally right now. And, you know, I would definitely agree with everything that everyone's stated already, that there's so much work that we still need to do, but we have come so far. And when I thought about this question and talked to my family a little bit about it, it's interesting. The first thing everybody was like, and also women just hold everything together. The glue that holds, you know, whether from a work perspective, family perspective, there are many ways we can think about the importance of this day and the different things that we work on. And I think that's just another aspect of it that we really do. So thank you, and great to see everyone.
Awesome, Whitney. Thank you. I love that. We are the glue that holds the world together. Okay, so we have 128 people on this call. This is incredible. Aloha, everybody. I think a lot of us just saw each other at GAC. And I think we prefer the in-person format now, but it's so cool that we can continue throughout the year on the virtual format, since we're all sophisticated in Zoom now. So I think we should just get right into the good stuff, if you guys don't mind. It's Friday, it's Pauhana almost, which we say in Hawaii, end of the day for a lot of you. So let's just ask some kind of bold questions here. And I'd love to hear your perspectives on this, and let's be raw and honest and transparent and authentic, okay? What is gender equality, and how would you rate our industry, the credit unions, and where we're at today? 1 through 5, okay? 1 is not happening at all. 5 is we don't even need to talk about it. It exists. And tell us why. Let's be real. Priscilla, I'll start with you again.
I'm off mute. So I'll first say that gender equality is music to my ears. It is empowering. It is non-threatening. It's, you know, working so hard. It's the thing that we've been working so hard to obtain for so many years. This movement started with a march in New York, I think in 1909. When you think back that long ago, that we were fighting for equality, and that we're still doing it to this day, you know, it is something that I feel that we, like you said before, Day and Whitney and Erin, that we've come so far, but we still have so much further to go, especially in the world of finance. Finance has been a male-dominated world for so very long. And it is people like us that are trying to help push forward the movement of making sure that there is that equality across the board, not only in, salaries, but in opportunities. We need to be given those opportunities just like anyone else. And once we're given those opportunities, we absolutely take advantage of them and take them and run with them and make them so much greater. And so my number that I would give our industry right now is probably more of like a 2.5. I'm not going to say we're at the bottom, but we still got so much work to do. But seeing my sisters here on this call gives me so much hope and optimism that we are on the right track and the movement is upwards, not downwards. So, I'm just overjoyed at the fact that Whitney is our newest CEO right now. Like, I'm so proud of her that I can just bust. I'm very proud of you, very, very proud of you. And I want to tell everybody on this call how proud of you I am.
Thank you. Thank you. That means so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, girls, chime in anywhere you want to chime in here.
I'll jump in. So I'll give you all first, not surprisingly, right? The legal definition first, right? So gender equality is essentially when all genders, right? Men, women, and gender diverse individuals, right, are free to pursue whatever career, lifestyle, choice they would like without discrimination. Now, here's the reality, right, of the definition. Gender equality does not necessarily mean that everyone is treated fairly, right, or exactly the same. Rather, it simply means that each of our needs and our dreams are valued equally so that everyone, to Priscilla's point, has the same opportunity, resources, and tools. Now, in order to achieve that though, right, we have to really dig. We have to dig to uncover microaggressions, right? We have to acknowledge and eliminate unconscious bias and stereotypes. And that takes a lot of work. And that's where I think gender equity comes in. In my mind, there's a distinction between gender equity and equality. They're often interchangeable, and we talk about them in the same context because they're related. But I believe before we get to the equality part, we need to deal with the equity part. And so gender equity sort of steps in to fill in these opportunity gaps, right? To dig in, to deal with the systematic biases, the unconscious and individual biases that we have. It levels the playing field. It levels the playing field so that men and women and gender diverse people have the same opportunity and tools. Once the playing field is set and even, right? Here comes gender equality to ensure that there's parity in the results. I mean, I always say, listen, you give me the same opportunity, tools, and resources as any man, and the fight is on, right? That's a fair fight. Any of us ladies on here will take it to them. We're ready to take that fight on, but we have to have the same opportunity, goals that are valued in the same way. And in order to do that, we really have to tackle the systematic biases, right, that lend themselves to the disparity in the results. So that, in my mind, is a huge distinction. Now, where are we as a credit union? We do a little better than Priscilla, but not much. And let me tell you why. I'm going to give us a strong 3. And here's why. Because I think we have done a tremendous amount of work, a tremendous amount. We have really, I think, moved the needle when it comes to gender equity and equality. So share again some numbers. CUNA's, I think last year's, their 2021 Women in Credit Union Leadership Survey report showed that 51% of the CEOs in our industry are women. We're adding another one, right? And hearing this great news. 33% of our board members are women. Wonderful. This is huge, guys. We have to celebrate that. we are indeed moving the needle, particularly when you compare those numbers, right, to the commercial banking world. So the same study that CUNA did showed that only 3% of commercial bank CEOs are women, right? And just 16% of their board members are women. Now that is a cavernous difference between them and us. Huge. That's something to be excited about and to celebrate. But I would posit to us all today, and I hope this is received in the way in which I'm intending it to be. I would posit that we need to stop resting on our comparative laurels, right? Stop resting on, relative to the banking industry, we're doing really well. Celebrate it, but recognize that we have to be not only better than others, but we have to be the best that we can be. And I don't think we're quite there yet. Sharing some numbers again. CUNA's survey showed, in terms of the 55% of our women CEOs that I talked about, 55% are over credit unions less than 500 million, 18% from the 500 to $750 million asset range, 20% from the 750 to $1 billion, 18% from $1 billion to $5 billion. And let's not talk about over $5 billion. The numbers are even less. So I share that obviously not to in any way minimize or slight our small credit unions and the work that they're doing, because they're on the grass level, member focused, doing the tough, hard work. I share it to signal that there is not parity across the board in our industry. Women have a seat at the table, but not every table. We need to have a seat at every asset table, every demographic table, every field of membership table, I believe, in this industry, on parity with men, to truly say that gender equality reigns in our industry. So based upon all that we have done in comparison to banks, but the further that we need to go, looking inward at ourselves, I give us a very strong 3, hoping, right, in an aspirational type of perspective, that we look inward and try to do better.
Wow, beautifully said. And thank you for all the data, Jay. Data speaks louder than words sometimes. I remember I had a mentor who once told me, and you just sparked this in my mind, Monica, you can compare yourself to the rats or you can compare yourself to the eagles. It depends on where you want to go. So I love that analogy about, we should certainly celebrate, but let's compare ourselves to the eagles.
Let's raise our standards, right?
Let's be eagles. Totally. I love it. So a strong 3 from Day, a 2.5 from Priscilla. We'd also love to see in the chat where you guys would rate us. Just throw in a number there. And Whitney, let's hear from you next.
Thanks, Monica. I would agree that we are at a strong 3. I have had the opportunity to work with some really wonderful credit unions where we are growing and we have seen the numbers increase. And I know we just went through all those numbers, which thank you so much for sharing those, because that perspective is so important. But once again, we just still have work to do. There's so much opportunity out there for us to continue on this, but I would agree with the strong 3. The credit union I just came from, MSU Federal Credit Union, was primarily women on the executive team. And that was really inspiring to me. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work on those different things at Elements Financial as well. So thanks.
All right, we're going to get an average here pretty soon. Erin, let's hear it.
Also want to hear from you and from SB, Monica, so you're not off the hook, but I will definitely answer. So I, like Priscilla, I wrote in my notes, and Day, I'm going to send you my notes because I'm so excited that mine are very similar to yours, but I won't repeat all that here. Anyway, I said we're a 2.5 or a 3, and it is incredible that we have made all these strides, and I'm so proud of all the leadership that's in credit unions, and that I've had the opportunity to know so many of these leaders at all the credit unions, regardless of the size, who are all doing really hard work and exhibiting such great leadership. And I still, from my perspective, as it's getting better, and we still have a smaller voice on the stage generally. And I think whether it's in an individual conversation, in groups, I want to continue to see us, continue to support each other and rising up and standing in our power to identify those microaggressions. And it's hard to do, easy to say, very difficult to do. And it's a long work. It's not a daytime, it's not like one day thing or a year thing. But that's where I want to see us head, because I agree with all of my fellow panelists. We have come so far and we have so much to be proud of, and we have a lot of good and important work to do, and with the fabulous foundations and the terrific momentum that's been started in no small part by AACUC and Renee's leadership. I think we're just going to keep going up. So that's my review. What do you say, Monica or SB?
Yeah, let's start with SB.
With me, I will say I 110% agree. We're at a solid 3, and there's a lot of hope behind that. Because look at the amazing women that we have right now on this panel. Miss Renee White being one of our biggest heroes. There is so much to look forward to, and I can only see that 3 going up to a 5. We just really have to put that effort, have that leadership, and also remember to mentor your young professionals. As a young professional, that's what I want to aspire to be. I want to be like a lot of you ladies on this panel. So we're well on our way. It's slowly there, but surely.
I love it. I love the plug on the young professionals. I have so much I could say on that one. So I guess I feel my rating is much lower, and I hope that it is not, I will say it is not a reflection of the work that our sheroes have done before us. That's certainly not. I think if anything, it's an empowered rating from the work that all of you women have done before us. I think I would probably rate it a 1.5 maybe. And that outlook is probably also because I have decades to go in this industry. And so if I rate it too high, then it'll be boring work. So we have tons of work to do still. I'm huge on this idea, and Juan said it in the chat here about, not only women, but women of color. And I think that speaks to this idea that diversity is an absolute must. And a lack of diversity stifles our planet, stifles humanity, stifles our industry. And so ultimately, I believe the millennial generation is the most diverse, the most inclusive, the most tolerant, the most collaborative. They're raising Gen Z, who's a billion times more diverse than any of us can imagine. So by the time the planet and the industry is in their hands, we'll be good. But we got a long way to go until then. In terms of what is gender equality, I would never try to follow up after Day said it. But I will say I know what it isn't, and we're looking at it. Okay, so since I went last, now I get to ask the next question. Okay, so this next question is, I think it's almost a given, but let's go here. Why do we need more women in leadership? But not only why, how? How do we get more women in leadership? How do we get more diversity in leadership, younger women in leadership, women of color in leadership? And when I say how, I really want to know if you have a kind of a theory or a solution here, like what is the barrier or the bridge here? Is it recruiting firms who are making the choices? Is it board of directors who are making the choices? Is it because we're not trying? Why and how do we need more women in leadership in credit unions? Take it away, anyone who's
I can start this one. So I have an interesting perspective just with this whole transition. I think one of the ways that we can make a big difference for women in leadership is having women in leadership. As I've gone through the transition, leaving MSU FCU, I was actually shocked how many emails I received and calls saying, I didn't know that a woman could do all of these things, be in a leadership role, have a family, have young children. It doesn't even have to be like those specific things, but just have things that you're taking care of in life and be successful and get it done and do it well. And even moving into the new role, receiving those same emails saying, oh my gosh, you have a family, you got this job. Because to be honest, I know, being a Black woman, we typically are not, like, they don't lean into us for these positions. And we have to not only be ready, but more than ready. And the only way that we can do that is by continuing to work hard to hopefully be in the right places at the right time. Because a portion of that is how it happens. Networking is important, but you need to see people like you and then have, help other people get there as well. I think that's how we make those changes, because you don't even understand like the impact that we all have on young professionals and people in the industry, and giving those opportunities. If you've been given those opportunities, is a huge part of what we can do to make a huge difference for us. And just know that people are watching what you're doing as a leader and as a young professional, and that we all have that responsibility to make the credit union industry a better place.
I love that sense of ownership. Anything to add, ladies?
Sure, I'll go next. Let's see. So why? Well, why obviously already been stated, because we do hold up the world regardless of whether or not we get the recognition, and and we don't need it. We just do it anyway, because that's who we are, which is part of our strength, in my opinion. And I think how, in addition, Whitney, your comments were so beautifully stated, and when you were talking about that, those messages that you got about, oh, how do you do it and have a family and have all these things? Well, we've always done that, and it's about time somebody noticed it. And we're, we have a superpower because we're able to juggle all of those things and still be incredibly successful. And so I would say, so I think that's important. And to me, a measure of success will be when that isn't a conversation anymore. When we don't hear, well, how do you do it? How do you do it being a mom? What do you mean, how do I do it? Well, how do you do it being a dad? How do you do it? I mean, when we don't have that, conversation anymore, that'll be a really good sign. In terms of how, I think definitely continuing to lead with integrity, to honor our values. And sometimes that's going to be a little bit hard, because sometimes, we have to, it's a very delicate balance and trade, as the women I've talked to about this on the line know that, this continues to be difficult, and it's gotten easier, and it's still hard. Also to lead with vulnerability, and to be willing to say, this is hard, and to say, oh, I'm not really sure I agree with that. And also to point out the microaggressions. You don't have to make a scene about it. You cannot, but you can go to the person and say, hey, I don't know, do you realize this, or this is really, that was offensive, and here's why. And, happy to talk to you about it. And just, you probably don't even know, but there it is. And continuing to do that, I think, is really, really important. And again, I'm not speaking up here like I'm an expert on any of these things. There's many things I could do better, and I have learned a lot along the way. I think we all have an opportunity to call it out, and to continue to do the great work that we do. And I think that helps younger women, because sometimes younger women I talk to get turned off. So they're like, really? Like, I'm doing all the right things and I'm following all the rules, and I'm still getting passed over for someone else who doesn't look like me, or who is not a woman. And to be able to say, well, I've been where you have in my life, and here are some ideas, and here you're not alone, and stand in your power and honor the values of the organization, and most importantly of yourself, is really, really important. And I think the more women that we can share that with, the better it will be. So those are my additions to Whitney's beautiful words.
Man, those are great, Erin. That I love coming behind you because you give me great sort of jumping parts, the starts, if you will. So I love how you talked about, if we get to a place where we don't have to have conversations about work-life balance and motherhood, that's when we have arrived. I so agree, because I am convinced that the emphasis is too much on what's wrong with women, right? In terms of dealing with the stereotypes and the unconscious bias, as opposed to what's wrong with the system, right? The processes and the policies that are already in place that give fervor and gaslight these stereotypes. So as soon as we can get away from that, we are going to be all the better. I also love what you talked about, Whitney, which is just being out there, presenting ourselves, particularly for younger women. We have to continue to spotlight our women, like the AACU does and is doing here. This is incredible, so impactful, because women need to see others doing what they're doing or what they want to do, right? They need to see people who look like them doing it in that space. There's no better way of, I think, of encouraging other women is to see other women doing it. We got to mentor them. We've talked about that, and I know we'll talk about mentoring more, but I think it's so crucial that we as women mentor one another, stand behind one another, and pick each other up. When we get in a position of authority, let's not just stop with us, right? Make way and opportunity for other women. We've got to be allies and advocates for one another. Allies, great, cheerleaders, right? They'll even give resources and time for you to help you get where you're going. But more than allyship, we need to be advocates for each other, right? Those people who will cheerlead for you when you're not in the room, right? It's easy to give accolades and to boost somebody up when they're in the room with you, but it's when they're not in the room, it's what you say about them, right? And whether or not you're willing to put your name and reputation on the line for them. That's huge. That's when you know you have an advocate, someone who is ride or die. So we need that amongst each other, but more importantly, this is what I think is the key. And I've said this in the context generally of D&I before. We need white male advocates. That is the key, because they are generally the ones in positions of power, right? And so not only do we need to lift each other up, but we need our brethren, right? Particularly our white male brethren, to step in, right? And make the case for us when we're not in the room. Make the case for us when we're not in the room. That is what will, I think, really accelerate us to a place where we get to see some real change happening. So I think that's part of what the number of things that we need to do to make sure women are in leadership. And it'll change organizations, because when women are in charge, the thinking of the organization changes, right? How they think about strategies and initiatives, it just changes. We bring a different perspective or different lens. It's just good for business. Not only is it the right thing to do, right? But it's just good for your business to have all perspectives at the table, because our members are different. So a lot of things we need to do, but I think we have the capability of doing them all.
Love that,
Renee,
Dave. I love that.
That triggered a quote that I love, and it's basically talking about how, you can always tell who strong women are, because they are the women who are building other women up and not tearing them down. So you triggered that in me. So yeah, all words are so true.
Awesome. I love the hows. We gotta have a note taker for this. That very tangible how you gave, Day. We had a lot of talks at this last GAC on the hows, like especially with the crasher group. It was very much the sentiment, I think, everywhere about let's stop talking about it and now we're doing it. We're just doing it. And so what specifically, tangibly can we do? Boom, there's one, like make the white male leaders our advocates, not just allies, our advocates, help them, empower them to be our advocates. Another idea that came out with a lot of the crashers and young professionals was let's all go back and make sure at least one or two diverse millennials are sitting on our board seat by the next time we see each other? Like how many, a wave of diversity on our board seats, because who's choosing the next decade of CEOs, right? This great retirement that's coming through. We're going to be looking at the future of our industry in 10 years from now based on the board's decisions today. So let's get more representation on those seats. Beautiful, ladies. Okay, so let's get a specific story going if any of you have them. Tell us about someone you've mentored or are mentoring. You can use a fake name if you want to. Tell us about the relationship. Tell us, what did you get out of it? What do they get out of it? Any stories?
So, Monica, I've got one that's a little different, to where today's point, I've been mentored by a white male. That kind of gives it a little different perspective from that standpoint. And it was someone that I seeked out in a position that I eventually want to be in. And he absolutely agreed to do this for me. And the relationship that we have is amazing, because at any point in time, I can call him and he gives me the raw, honest truth about myself, what I'm thinking, why I'm thinking it. I'm like, this man can see inside my soul and figure out what in the world is really going on. And he gives me encouragement when I need it. He gives me the hard lessons when I need it. And so the relationship I have with him is so important to me. And he is a white male. And that perspective is important to me, because that's who I'm in competition with a lot of times in the industry. That's who I'm working with in the industry. And so having his perspective in a lot of the things that I go through and need to talk through is invaluable to me. So that's just a different twist to your question from that standpoint.
Beautiful. Love it. Mentor relationships of any kind. We'd love to hear about them.
Well, I'll tell a story about, was someone else going to talk? Okay.
All you, Erin.
So I'll tell a story specifically about last year's one-to-one mentoring program. And I met a woman, I don't think she would mind me sharing her name, Alicia Cheney, who was in our movement, left, and as a boomerang, she's back in our broader financial services circle, working for Visa today. So yes, like you, Renee, super excited that she is back. And I talked to her just yesterday, and anyway, it was this week, and we were talking about what we got out of it, because we graduated from that year, we moved on, she left, came back, and all that, and we're still in touch, which is great. And I told her, as I've shared often, sometimes for me in these mentoring programs, I'm honored that I get to be a part of it with the younger women, and also the gifts to me, because I learned so much. And that's something that Alicia really brought home for me, because she is it. Speak of a powerful woman. Ooh, she knows where she is in the world, and she says it, but she says it with all the grace and gentleness, but she's not afraid to back. She won't back down if she believes something is right. And she does that in the right way. And I think that's really, really strong and brave and wonderful, and as it should be. And she, so we got to share some of those things. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're still in contact, because we are able to have an honest conversation with each other about being a woman, also her being Black and me being white. And what does that mean? And it's different. And, acknowledging what those things are and talking about that manifestation of that has been really, 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 really powerful. And so that's why I think mentoring is fantastic for both mentor and mentee. And, it's important for us to take advantage of whatever opportunity we have. And Priscilla, hats off for seeking it out, to seek somebody, a white man in a job that you wanted, and say, this is what I want. And that you all have continued to, form and grow your relationship is just, that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Powerful. Awesome. Thank you, Erin. Renee, can you unmute yourself and give us one of your stories? I know you're like the power mentor of the decade.
Wow. I have a great story. So I did GAC a lot when I had no staff. So I have volunteers at ACC who are phenomenal. So my volunteers were actually my staff. But Tanya Allen and I, the first time that she came to the booth, I have white hair today, but anyway, I don't believe in all that, the colored hair and stuff. So she had colored hair. Fast forward, working, I guess 5 years later, still working together. On a Sunday, she said, "Miss Renee, you're gonna love the suit I have for Tuesday," because Tuesday was our big day that we celebrate. And we showed up in the same outfit. And I loved it. I have pictures of it. I think it was great. So we're at the GAC booth. We look like we have white jackets with black trim. And I said, "I totally love what you're wearing." And she totally loved what I was wearing. So that's just a small story about one of the people that I mentor. But I get excited about making sure that other women are lifted up. It's what I do. I love doing it. I think it's quite important. And so that's just one of my stories. I got plenty, but that's one of them. So thank you, Monica.
Awesome. That's powerful. Any other stories, Day or Whitney?
I would just say I love mentoring and working, especially with young professionals and women. And I think one of the stories that I think of is I love to challenge people. So if I'm, especially from a work perspective, so I've had mentors that have worked for me, one specifically where I gave her specific projects that she didn't think that she was ready to do. And I always think about, and I don't know the exact statistic, but that women are less likely to do a job unless they think they're completely ready for the job, versus a man may not be all the way ready, but he'll figure it out along the way and be fine, how they think about it. But so I love to give those projects as part of like mentorship, like, hey, here's something for you to work on. She just was like, I don't think are you talking to me? Like, I don't think this is what I should be doing. I'm like, oh, no, you're going to do this project and then we'll talk about it. And then came the next project and the next project. And she's now a manager. She's doing all of these really amazing things. And it's just that little piece about someone believing in you. And I remember the first time I had a mentor that believed in me, gave me an opportunity, and the difference it makes for your self-confidence moving forward. And that's one of the things that I like work really hard with my mentor relationships to try to say, like, mentor-mentee relationships, is that just that opportunity, it's your choice. You have an opportunity to do something with it. What are you going to do? Everyone's time is valuable, which is another huge thing for the mentor relationships, that we have to really make sure that we're valuing time, everyone's time, but we all have an opportunity to take it to the next level.
Just briefly, I know we're coming towards time, but everything that my co-panelists have said is on point. I really love mentoring. Because I think it gives to the mentee and also the mentor, sort of like, Baptist preacher would tell you all the time when he's preaching this, I preach this sermon for myself, right? I'm preaching to myself as I preach to you all. Well, that's how I see mentoring. As I'm coaching or advising, I'm literally preaching to myself, either myself 25 years ago, or myself now, or myself where I want to go into the future. And so it's so rewarding. I just had lunch with a mentor recently, and she was sharing some stuff and asking me and giving me some advice. And then she turned around and said, "Well, what about you? Why aren't you doing?" And I said, "It's not about me, about you." No, thank you. I appreciate that, because it caused me to sort of check myself and do some introspection and go, you know what? I appreciate you sharing that with me, because I struggle with that too, right? I struggle. And that's always, brings you together with your mentee. When you can be transparent, right? Be who you are fully and authentic, and say to them, yeah, I struggle in that area as well. Let's talk about how we together can do better. They are so much more apt to receive what you're giving out. And then I'll just lastly say that I have several mentors. I have a council, a tribe is what I call them, of women and men who serve different places in my life. It's just like friendships, right? You know, you have different friends and you go to different friends about different things. You go to one friend about an issue with your husband. You go to a single friend about an issue. You go to another friend about work. And some friends you don't tell everything to. You're like, no, I ain't gonna tell her that because she's not gonna give me good advice. Well, the same, I sort of see mentoring as that in that same sphere. So I have several different mentors. I have a white male mentor who helps me navigate, like you, Priscilla, in white male dominated spaces, who I know is my advocate and will give me concrete, solid advice, and I trust him. I have white female mentors, right, who can help me see things from that perspective, because I think it's so important that women of color and white women are aligned, right? There's so many attempts in society to fissure our relationship, am I right? It is, but we are aligned. We have so much more in common than we will ever have that is different. So I have a white female mentor. Then I have mentors, you know, just for legal issues, right? People I can just run by. You know, I'm dealing with a legal issue. I don't know how to deal with it. I go to that person. So just different folks who bring to me different aspects of my, you know, whatever issue or struggle I'm going through. And I've always found that to be very, very useful. You can get one that has it all. That's great. But certainly take advantage of the different people in your lives and the different roles that they play. It's always good to have different perspectives.
I love that, Day. I love the tribe of mentors. You know, some can be formal, some can be informal,
Yep.
But I think it speaks to the same kind of theology that we're saying here about diversity, right? Diversity is the heart of equity and inclusivity and tolerance and innovation and beauty and progress. So a diverse set of mentors and mentees helps expand even more of that and propagate even more of that. Well, cool. Well, it's 48 past the hour. Let's go into some Q&A. Let's hear from the tribe of friends we have out here today. Any questions? Please put some in the chat for this super panel here. We have had a few come in. One question was, okay, here's an interesting one. So if our white/black male counterparts are our advocates, are they going to feel insecure about losing the power and positions they've held for so long? Any thoughts on that one?
Honestly, I think it's always a thought in their mind. I don't think that's not an unfair thought for them to have. I mean, when you start talking about DEI, the first thing, you know, C-suite employees start to think about, well, if we bring somebody on, which one of us is leaving? And so that's always going to be a thought in their mind. It's just figuring out how we can coexist in that realm and find each other's values and see what each other can bring to the table equally in that scenario. So I absolutely think they think about that on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think they do too. And I think, I hope that we continue to see advocates who understand the most important role of leadership, which is to find somebody to replace you and to lift them up above you. And so in that regard, I mean, what an excellent legacy to find somebody and to advocate to someone who, you know, you want to leave it in a place and then the next person makes it better than you had it. So wouldn't that be great? And so I think you're right, Priscilla. I think it's a reason why we're at the 2.51, 2.53 in the movement, and, you know, lesser than that in general society. And I think, you know, maybe that's a way in our individual mentor-mentee relationships as we establish and build trust with men, and particularly white men in leadership, that we can, you know, help to further that conversation. Well, what if and how about? I mean, it'd be worth trying.
Awesome. Another question over here in the chat. How are we becoming better advocates for women in our LGBTQ plus community to help lift them up? And I mean, I'll just jump in there right now. I think this idea that we've hit on, that women think more collaboratively and inclusively, right? And I would say the same thing for more diverse generations who've been exposed to a whole lot more in their childhood and in their brain development stages. And when you have women in leadership, and this is actually statistical, I don't have the study though, but I can find it, that when you have women in leadership, you tend to have more diverse leadership teams. You have more diverse cultures in your organization. You have more diverse customers because you're appealing to more diversity. So in general, just by taking ownership of the fact that we need to be in leadership because it's better for our industry. Like if you really believe that and own that, you won't lie to yourself and tell yourself you're not qualified, right? We're overqualified to do it. So I would say that's one way that we would advocate, is just by continuing to be leaders and changing the thought patterns of our industry. Any other thoughts on that question, ladies? All right, well, it's 7:52. Let's do one more. I see, as a YP, which is a young professional, and not having a leader title. This is from Mark. Hi, Mark. Aloha, buddy. Any suggestions on how we can support women in the credit union movement and women in general as a YP? Wow, great question, Mark. I would say keep challenging us, but yeah, please go ahead, Erin.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'd add to it, continue to advocate for your colleagues who are women, and when they're out of the room, in addition to when they're in the room. And Mark, you do a good job of that. Like you brought around your friend who was a new I3er and introduced her to everybody you know. You have a terrific network. So those are specific examples for you, Mark Bowles. But for anyone, one of the great benefits of being a YP is you're building all these great communities. And if you see people who you believe, and you're interested in bringing along with you, then just grab them by the arm, or, just say, come along with me, and bring them with you. That could be a really non-threatening way to do it, and to honor where everybody is, in terms of your role. By the way, leader doesn't mean you have a position. So I'll just leave that there, but
there you go.
Here's a great one. Let's do one more in case we have time for one more, which we do. So how can we advocate for immigrant women who, especially those who have an accent and, just feel like they need extra empowerment? How can we do that? Any stories here or thoughts?
I talk about General Sanchez all the time, and I love her accent. It's what makes her so special. Just embrace it, lean into it. I love her accent. General, good to see you.
And call out, right? Call out any unconscious or conscious and blatant biases or remarks with regard to immigrants' accent. Find the right time to do it. Sometimes it's so egregious, right, that you may have to, take time shortly after it's said to address it. But we have to be brave enough, have enough courage to face stuff like that and advocate for folks, right, by speaking up and saying something about it. And don't let the lag time be too much between when you see that happening. It's an issue, it's an incident. Don't let it become a pattern, right? Because then it becomes so much more difficult to address when you finally decide to address it. If it's really egregious, or even if not, pull your colleague aside afterwards and say, listen, that's not appropriate. This is, borderline, if not, racist. And then make sure you're encouraging, right, your fellow colleagues who have these accents. Let them know that you value them, right? They're no different than any of us. We all have different perspectives and come from different places, and each is admirable and appreciated, and encourage them to continue to be their authentic self, right?
That's powerful, Day. I was going to ask you for an example of how to speak on that, because we all want to be courageous. Sometimes we just don't have the sentence that we've practiced on how to say it, but that's a great example.
Yeah.
Be positive and respectful about it. But just mention that, that's, what did you say? That's borderline racist, or just be careful I mean, like what would be a good sentence that we can all go back with that we could
Hmm.
use in that situation? Like I just made fun of Erin's
Yeah.
accent and now we're out of the meeting.
Yeah, I don't know if it was your intent to sound the way you sounded, but it could easily be perceived, and was perceived by myself as being offensive, racist.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Powerful.
that's what I was gonna say too, is
Yeah.
make, let them know how you feel and how it made you feel as a person. Because a lot of times we kind of try to deflect how you feel, but that is the most important piece of that whole scenario, Day, is that it made me feel this way.
Yeah,
And I always tell people one person's perception is another person's reality. So whether you meant it that way or you didn't, that's how I took it.
there you
So
go.
that's the most
Well,
important piece.
absolutely.
That's good.
Beautiful.
That's good.
Awesome. Well, that's a great last question. Thank you guys for asking. It's 57 past the hour, so I'm going to pass it back to Espy for closing. Thank you, ladies, so much. That was beautiful discussion. I hope everyone took notes.
Yes, yes. I hope everybody was taking notes. There's so many great nuggets, and I will tell my amazing panelists, if you weren't paying attention to the chat, because I know I told you not to, it was going off with cheers and a lot of yeses and mic drop moments. So first, thank you so, so much for being a part of this panel. To our 100, and I think at one point it was like 140 registrants, thank you all for joining us for this amazing discussion. I hope that you all got something out of it, even if it's like a quote or a little nugget of knowledge that you can take with you. With that, I do want to add a little plug in. Please don't forget our commitment to change conversations. These are every third Friday of the month at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Soon as we put out that link, go ahead and register so you can save it on your calendar. And with that, please mark your calendars for our next commitment to change conversation, which will be April 15th. And this one is out of the box thinking about financial literacy. So you definitely don't want to miss that one either. Again, panelists, thank you so, so much for your amazing pieces of knowledge and information. Monica, thank you for being our moderator. And we have 2 minutes left. So I'm going to pass it back to Miss Renee Sadiwai, our Shiro, for some closing remarks from her.